Welcome back to the Her Fertility Podcast. I am so grateful that you have been going through this fertility journey series with me. And today's episode is one of my favorites because we are going to dive into diminished ovarian reserve. I say it's one of my favorites because this is a really sticky place that women find themselves in. It can feel very surprising, and often you feel like you don't have any tools and you're just being pushed through your fertility journey without agency or choice. And I'm going to walk you through some steps today. So if you do find yourself being diagnosed with diminished ovarian reserve, you can feel not like you're losing yourself on your journey, but instead like you do have some of your power still. And at the end, I'm going to be answering your questions. I posted on TikTok if you had any questions about diminished ovarian reserve, and I got some really great questions, so I'll be answering those at the end. In the last episode of the podcast, we talked about the advanced fertility testing that you will likely have done on your fertility journey. And one of those is the AMH test. So the anti-Müllerian hormone is the hormone that's secreted by the follicles in waiting in the ovaries. So a woman is born with all of the eggs or follicles that she will ever have, and those are living in the ovaries, and they secrete anti-Müllerian hormone. So your practitioner can measure the level of AMH, and the idea is that the higher the AMH, the more eggs there are. And vice versa, the lower the AMH, the less eggs there are. However, there is no way currently for practitioners to go in and actually count how many eggs you have. We don't have that kind of technology yet, so it is an estimate. And we know that during ovulation, follicles develop into mature eggs. And it's not just one, it's usually a couple develop, and then one is then like the chosen one. And it will be fully developed during ovulation and released for the opportunity for conception. It is also very important to note that AMH does not measure your egg quality. It only measures your egg quantity. And this is kind of a point of frustration for some people. We don't currently have a way to measure egg quality. We can, however, do things that improve our overall health and vitality, thus then benefiting our egg quality. But there's no test to go in and test the quality of your eggs. There are symptoms for low egg quality, one of them being recurrent pregnancy loss. And we are going to dive into a full episode on pregnancy loss as we continue on this journey on the podcast. Currently, if you're like, well, what is my egg quality like? Like I have maybe I have low eggs, but are they good eggs? We don't know. So it's kind of a moment where you're using the best data you have available to make decisions about the body. But in that, you still don't have all of the data you wish you could. And so if you're diagnosed with diminished ovarian reserve, what that means is you have fewer eggs remaining than expected for your age. Over time, as we ovulate each cycle and as we age, the number of follicles in the ovaries does decrease. And so ovarian reserve is tied to age, statistically speaking. And statistically speaking, somebody in their 20s would have more eggs than somebody in their 40s. And one of the more frustrating things is there are no symptoms for low ovarian reserve other than infertility. And infertility has many reasons why, you could not be getting pregnant. And so you might go into your practitioner and they do the testing and then they come back and say, well, you have diminished ovarian reserve based on the data we gathered. And you would have no idea otherwise that is the case. And so getting those test results back and being diagnosed with DOR or diminished ovarian reserve can feel very surprising. It can feel kind of out of left field. It can also feel like suddenly time becomes super urgent, but it does not automatically mean you can't get pregnant. It also does not tell you the full story of your egg quality or outcomes. And age is important, but it's only one factor. It's not, the countdown clock suddenly hits 0. It's just that this is now data you have to work with, and you do have decisions to make in this moment. But that decision-making process can feel rushed, it can feel hurried, because your practitioner is going to try to support you in getting pregnant with the tools they have available. But some of that stuff does need to start happening quickly if, in fact, you do have a low egg count. And the reason I say that is, going back for the last episode, an AMH reading is a point-in-time reading. And AMH can increase over time, but it is the best data you have available in the moment. So it's kind of this like seesaw effect of like, do I work with the data I have today, saying I have low AMH and diminished ovarian reserve, or do I give myself some time and see if my AMH improves? But then the argument is, if you wait longer, then you're losing more ovarian reserve, essentially. So it does become a bit of urgency. And this is where having clarity around decision making becomes super important. And what we know is being dysregulated in the body, like having a dysregulated nervous system, it impacts, of course, your hormones and your sleep and your inflammation, but it also impacts your decision making. And you can feel very out of body while you're trying to make these super important decisions. And when everything feels urgent, your body doesn't feel safe. And so it's this interesting loop that you find yourself in. But you do have options when working with your provider. So I'm going to walk through the options. I'm going to walk through what you can control, and then we will answer all of the questions that were sent in on TikTok. So once you've been diagnosed with DOR, you have about 5 options. You can continue to try naturally. This can be data that you have and now you continue to try on your own, and that is absolutely always an option for you. If that is the option you choose for you, you feel that that is the best option for you, then it becomes essential that you understand your cycle and when you are ovulating. And I have a full free 3-part course on YouTube called Aligned Cycles, where you can learn exactly how to understand when you're ovulating. So equip yourself with that knowledge if you are opting to try naturally moving forward. The next option you have is IUI. So intrauterine insemination. We are gonna, of course, do a full deep dive on IUI as part of this series. And it is where they will take the sperm and clean it up and then inject the sperm as close to the cervix as possible to give it the best chance of reaching the egg during ovulation. But IUI can have success. There are also some really important factors to consider when you do choose IUI. So we will be deep diving those in the IUI episode coming up soon. You also will be given the option of IVF. IVF is where they will take the eggs that you do have out. They will do an egg retrieval. They will also retrieve sperm. They will put them together in the laboratory setting and create embryos. And then the viable embryos are then available to implant using in vitro fertilization or IVF with the hopes of implantation and pregnancy. And yes, we're going to do a deep dive on IVF as part of this series. Another option, depending on where you're at in your journey, say you get a diminished ovarian reserve diagnosis, but you're not ready to get pregnant yet, then the option of egg retrieval and freezing would be a really good option for you. So you can do an egg retrieval, and then the eggs that are retrieved are frozen for you to use at a later time. And the technology around egg freezing has just become so much better over the last 5 years. And the protocol is very standard. The freezing and the thawing, it works really well now. So if you are considering egg retrieval and egg freezing, then you can rest in knowing that the technology is pretty solid nowadays. And then the 5th option would be donor eggs. The donor egg programs available are quite frankly amazing. There are some beautiful companies that work in different ways to do donor eggs and donor gametes. So if that's for you, your practitioner will likely have like a referral list of companies they recommend, but you can also do your own research into a company that does donor eggs. And I think a lot of people feel like there's a lot of restraints around donor eggs, but nowadays there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to donor eggs, whether you use them with your clinic or you have them transferred to another clinic. There's lots of flexibility nowadays. So definitely, of course, do your research with that. And we will be doing a deep dive on donor as well. So if any of these options are interesting to you, I will be bringing you more information on them in this series on the Her Fertility Podcast. And when everything becomes about the numbers, it's really easy to disconnect from yourself. But that connection is actually part of what supports your body through this process. So let's talk about what you can control during this time where you have this diagnosis that can feel very rushed, very surprising, very shocking, like truly very end of the world moment, because what you thought is very different from what actually is. This is stuff that your practitioner doesn't have language around to support you with. And so this is where you can control these things, but it is going to take action on your part to do that. And the first is to support how you are making decisions. A lot of times it feels like you need to give an answer in the moment, but if that feels too pressure filled for you, you have to advocate and ask for yourself, when do I need to let you know by? When does this decision need to be made by? Or be clear that you aren't ready to make the decision now. Like, thank you so much for the data. Thank you for your recommendation. I am not ready to make a decision. I'm going to think about this and then I will get back to you. And you can clarify with your provider, when do I need to get back to you by? Like, is there for some reason some time frame that I need to live within here? And, a practitioner's role is to support you in your goal. And they have tools to do that. And so that is the framework that they are working within. And they will feel, most likely, that if you have diminished ovarian reserve, that they need to do their work quickly, right? To optimize their chances of success with you getting pregnant. However, if that doesn't feel right for you, then you have control about how you make decisions. You also have control over how you experience this journey. And what I mean by that is, yes, it can initially feel shocking and surprising and out of your control. And when you have the tools and the support to take a step back and bring your nervous system down and regulate it and have emotional support systems, then the experience changes from this is happening to me to, okay, I have some data now, and moving forward, I'm going to use this data to make the best decision for me. And those are two very different places to live within as you move forward. And it's not to discount the experience of shock and surprise because, yeah, DOR is very surprising most of the time. And there is a way to support yourself as you start to make these decisions. One of those ways is to support your nervous system. And before you roll your eyes, because I can feel your eye roll, your nervous system is absolutely at play here, and it's informing your thoughts. Your thoughts are also informing your nervous system. So there's this two-way street happening. And the more you can hold and support your nervous system through this, and I'll give you some ways here in just a minute, the more clear your thoughts are going to be, the more connected to your body you're going to be, and the more grounded you will feel as you start to make decisions. So even though you're making decisions that you never thought you'd have to make, and maybe you don't want to be making, you will at least have a sense of grounding and trust as you move through the process, rather than feeling like you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and you just hope something sticks, right? Because that is a feeling of a dysregulated nervous system, and you definitely don't have to have that as part of your experience. And I say this truly from a place of love because that was me. I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall and nothing was sticking. And I didn't give myself the support and the tools that I needed because nobody told me. Nobody was like, listen, yes, this is surprising and shocking, but let's ground your nervous system, and so that the decisions that you are making feel like they're coming from a place of trust and inner knowing as you move forward. So one of the best ways to tap into your nervous system is to give yourself a way every day to come out of fight and flight. You will not know if your nervous system is in the sympathetic state or the fight and flight state because there's no indicator light. Right? There's no light bulb that goes on to say my nervous system is dysregulated. And we've largely normalized living with a dysregulated nervous system. So you might kind of feel calm in your body, like you have it all handled, but your nervous system might still be like on alert. And so regardless of whether you know or you feel dysregulated, what you can do to support yourself is give yourself something at the end of the day. It could be in the middle of the day if you have that time, but typically at the end of the day, that will bring you out of it. And this does not look like sitting in front of the TV and watching TV. This looks like unplugging, removing yourself from any stimuli, and coming back into the body. For some people, it's walking in nature without headphones, just walking, repetitive movement in nature. For some people, it's getting in a bath, like in water, in warm water, and just letting that water take all of the energy from this journey with it down the drain. For some people, it's like a breath work or a meditation. So finding the thing for you that you, one, can commit to, but two, that feels good, and then doing that thing is going to support you as you continue to make decisions. And sometimes it feels like silly or even selfish to like take the time to do those things, but this is your life that we're talking about. Like, this is your future. And so more than ever, you should absolutely be doing these things for you. And the connection to yourself is what's going to help you feel grounded, feel clear, feel certain as you start to make the decisions on what's next for you. And I am so grateful that so many of you sent me questions about diminished ovarian reserve on TikTok. If you're not following me on TikTok, it's at herfertility.support. And so I'm going to read through the questions and give you my honest, unbiased answer. And know that I don't know your full story. So if you sent a question in and this answer doesn't land for you, I don't know your full background. But one of the questions is, did I wait too long? So this is a common experience for a lot of women. So thank you for being brave enough to ask the question, did I wait too long? You will never know the answer to that. And I know that is not the answer you want. But instead of focusing and shaming yourself on did I wait too long, what now becomes important is that you start to listen to yourself moving forward and supporting yourself so that no matter what's next, you feel grounded and centered in that decision making. So fear, we're going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. Fear lives in the past and in the possibility of the future. And if we can pull ourselves into this present moment with the data you have now and bring your body into a grounded state, then fear doesn't have a place to stand with you. But if you continue to ask yourself, did I wait too long? And you're living in the past on what should have, could have, would have happened if, then fear has a lot of room to live there. So rather than focusing on this question, find a way and ask yourself, how can I support myself now? And move forward from that place. Okay, next question. What if I'm not ready to do IVF yet? Yeah, this is a common. So IVF is typically a more common prescription for DOR. If you're not ready for IVF, you have to listen to that, because if your practitioner is recommending IVF, you feel you are not ready for that, but you do it anyway. How is your body going to respond? Let's talk about the nervous system, right? Like, your nervous system is going to be like, no, we're not ready the whole time. And it will respond in that way to the procedure itself. So definitely listening to yourself, listening to your practitioner, but then also listening to yourself. Okay, another question was, how do I choose the right clinic or the right protocol? Okay, those are two different questions. So how do you choose the right protocol? We've been talking about listening to yourself, getting clarity and grounding before you make a decision is really going to help in that. How do you choose the right clinic? This is a really great question. Depending on where you live, you might have an option. Depending on where you live, you might not have an option. And so that becomes a really big factor. The reality is we have a lot of fertility deserts in our country where people don't have access to advanced fertility treatments because of where they're located. And it's a real problem. So you might have to travel for treatment, and that's a real thing. If you do have options in your area and or you're traveling, right? Then the question becomes, how do you choose a clinic? Most clinics will offer some type of like free consultation or consultation, and definitely take them up on that. Go in for a consultation. I know that, with scheduling and appointments and things, like time is a factor here, but my recommendation would be to at least meet with 3 clinics. What meeting it with 3 will give you is an idea of what is important for you and what's not important for you. And what I mean by that is like different things are important to different people. So how you feel in the clinic and with the staff might be really important to you, or you might find that their success rates and their data on that is really important to you. And so by meeting with 3 different clinics, you'll get a sense for like, okay, what is important for me? Where do I feel most comfortable? And you will know that after you can compare them with each other. Okay, 2 more questions. How do I talk to my partner about this? I love this question. I have a master's in communication, and I loved studying interpersonal communication, which is how we talk with each other. It's really tricky, though, for me to answer this without knowing you and your partner because every partnership is different. So my answer, like my general answer is you just do. You just talk to your partner about it. The reality is they need to know, and they are part of this conversation as well. And so how do you talk to them is going to be unique to you as a couple, but you do need to talk to them about it. You might frame it in a way that feels really supportive for you, where you can say something like, I'm not looking to solve this problem right now. I just want to share with you what I know. That way you're setting the expectation that like, we're not having this conversation to make decisions right now. We're just going to share what we know right now. And that might lead to then brainstorming together, what other information do you need to gather before you make a decision, right? So if you haven't talked to your partner about it yet, then definitely do that and invite them to be a part of this with you. Okay, last question. How do I make decisions without fear of running the show? Such a brave question. Thank you for submitting this on TikTok. How do you make decisions without fear of running the show? It all comes back to your nervous system. So we've talked a little bit about fear, but when you are grounded in your body and you have clarity and you can really hear for you what that is, like what that answer is, fear has no place there. And if you're brave enough to get to know fear, one of the things I like to work with people on, like when we do one-to-one work, is being able to feel the fear, but then not reacting from that feeling. And this is kind of a bigger conversation around the emotional fear, but when we act because of the feeling of fear, that's usually when things become misaligned. So if you can still feel the fear, acknowledge it for what it is, and come back into your body in a grounded state, then you will be much more clear to not do what fear is telling you. Typically, fear is just there to try and keep you safe from something, from the pain or whatever. And so you can sit with it and feel it for what it is and then let it go and then make a decision from being clear. Now, I know all of that sounds a little bit abstract and honestly, it's much more easier said than done. And there is no perfect way here. There's no you do it once and it's done. This is an ongoing regulating thing you do for your body as you continue to move through your fertility journey. And that's why I created the Fertility Frequency. It is a collection of resources where you can log in, access a video or an audio for you that helps you come back to your body. It helps you process these emotions like fear and anger. Or if you are going through an IVF cycle, there's a playlist specific to that. So you have a meditation or an audio for your egg retrieval, your transfer day, and then when you're waiting, that 2-week wait. And so if you are at a loss for how to stay grounded, if you are feeling overwhelmed by having diminished ovarian reserve and you're like, yeah, Jess, that sounds really nice to make decisions from a grounded place, but I don't know how to do that, then this is for you. I literally created this because I wanted people to be supported in a really accessible way so that you have tools at your fingertips to use at the time that works best for you. And I would love for you to jump into the collective and use it for as long as you need it. And then when you're done with it, you can cancel it and, move forward. But it is designed specifically for the fertility journey. And I'm so grateful for the people who are already in it and enjoying it and using it to help ground themselves. So there's a link in the show notes for the Fertility Frequency Collective, and you can find it on all of my social media channels at the link in my bio. But it was definitely designed for you in this moment. So I hope you consider using it. And in the next episode of the Her Fertility Podcast, we are going to start to dive into these different options you have available. So we're going to talk about assisted cycles and IUI next, and I will see you then. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of the Her Fertility Podcast. I am so grateful you're here. If you found this episode valuable, then I'd love for you to join me on the next one. Share it with a friend and rate the episode with a 5-star review so that the podcast can reach the women who need it most. If you have any questions about what you just heard, please connect with me on social media at herfertility.support. Find the right type of support for your fertility journey in the show notes below.